That thing in the chair isn't my mother anymore. It's a senile shell taking up space. Just get the doctor to sign the papers. The words, cold and sharp, slice through the quiet of the Serenity Crest hallway. Lennon Clark, janitor and single father, freezes mid-mop, the cruelty of the statement hitting him like a physical blow. The man speaking is Damian Kincaid, real estate titan, pointing dismissively into his mother's room. He stands with Mr. Dryden, the facility director, whose face is a practiced mask of neutral deference. Damian's suit is worth more than Lennon's car, his presence sucking all the warmth from the air. He exudes an aura of impatience, as if this visit is a deeply inconvenient detour in a life of billion-dollar deals. Damian catches Lennon's eye, his face twisting with contempt. "What are you looking at?" "Get back to work." Lennon quickly turns away, his cheeks burning with a stranger's shame. He ducks his head and pushes his cart forward, the squeak of the wheels suddenly deafening. He shouldn't have stared. At Serenity Crest, the staff is paid to be invisible, to scrub away the grime of old age and mortality without ever acknowledging it, especially not when family, or what passes for it, comes to visit. He's just the help, a ghost in a gray uniform, and ghosts aren't supposed to have opinions. But as he pushes his cart past the doorway of room 3B, he glances in. He can't help it. He sees the woman, Ilara Vance. A senile shell, her son called her. She sits in a high-backed armchair by the large window overlooking the manicured gardens, a cashmere blanket pooled around her frail frame. Her head is tilted slightly, her eyes vacant, fixed on something far beyond the pristine glass. She looks exactly as she does every other day, a beautiful statue slowly gathering dust. Yet, as Lennon watches from the periphery, her right hand lifts from her lap. It moves with a slow, almost painful effort toward the window, which is slightly fogged from the afternoon humidity. Her finger touches the glass and begins to move. It's not the aimless, trembling motion he's seen from other residents lost in the fog of their minds. This is different. She deliberately traces a complex geometric pattern on the pane, a star inside a circle, with lines bisecting it at sharp, precise angles. The gesture is too clean, too intricate to be random. Her hand then drops back into her lap, her expression unchanging, her eyes still empty. Lennon pushes his cart down the hall, his heart hammering against his ribs. He doesn't understand what he saw, not really. But the image, the stark contrast of that precise, intelligent symbol against her vacant stare, burns into his mind. That, and the brutal, dismissive words of her son. The rest of his shift passes in a blur. He empties trash cans filled with discarded magazines and wilting flowers. He scrubs floors until they reflect the muted, sterile light. He cleans the grand lobby, where portraits of stern-faced founders look down with disapproval. Every corner of Serenity Crest whispers of wealth and loneliness. It's a place where people come to wait for the end in quiet, expensive dignity. For most residents, family visits are a lifeline. For Ilara Vance, they are a curse. Lennon has worked here for 2 years, ever since his own company, a small security installation firm he'd built from the ground up, went bankrupt. The failure had cost him everything: his savings, his confidence, and his wife, who'd packed her bags one Tuesday and announced she couldn't live with a man who couldn't provide. She'd left him with a mountain of debt and their 6-year-old daughter, Harper. Now Harper is 10, and she is the sun around which his entire broken world revolves. This job, with its steady, if meager, paycheck, is for her. It keeps a roof over their heads and food on the table in their cramped 2-bedroom apartment. He thinks of Harper as he clocks out, the memory of her laughter from this morning a warm spot in his chest. She'd been meticulously drawing a picture of a dragon for him, its scales a rainbow of crayon colors. "He breathes glitter, not fire, Daddy," she'd explained with the utmost seriousness. "Because he's a friendly dragon." That's the world he wants for her. A world with friendly dragons who breathe glitter. Not a world with sons who call their mothers senile shells. When he gets home, Harper runs to meet him at the door, wrapping her small arms around his legs. "You're late," she says, her voice muffled against his work pants. "Sorry, sweetie." It was a long day. He lifts her up, her small weight a comforting anchor. He smells the scent of cinnamon and crayons in her hair. "Did you see the quiet lady today?" she asks. Harper has visited him at work a few times, always on her best behavior, and has become fascinated with Ilara Vance. She calls her the quiet lady, a description that feels more accurate than any medical diagnosis. "I did," Lennon says, setting her down and unlacing his worn-out boots. "Is she still quiet?" "Yeah, Harp. She's still quiet." He doesn't tell her about Damien Kincaid. He doesn't tell her about the ugly words or the strange symbol on the window. He can't. How do you explain that kind of coldness to a child who believes in glitter-breathing dragons? Later that night, long after Harper is asleep, Lennon sits at their small kitchen table, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee. He can't shake the image of Ilara's finger on the glass. He pulls out a pen and a napkin and tries to draw the pattern from memory. A star, a circle, the sharp, bisecting lines. It looks like something from an old book of symbols, or maybe a corporate logo. He knows a little about security systems from his old job. It resembles the kind of complex insignia used on high-level keypads, designs meant to be memorable but difficult to replicate. A random doodle, a flicker of an old memory, or something more. He crumples the napkin and throws it in the trash. It's not his business. He has his own problems, his own life to worry about. He needs this job. Getting involved in the family drama of a resident, especially one whose son is a man like Damien Kincaid, is a fast track to the unemployment line. He has to forget it. For Harper's sake. But as he gets ready for bed, he knows he won't forget. He'll walk down that polished hall tomorrow, and he'll look into room 3B, and he'll wonder. He'll wonder about the quiet lady and the secret she drew on the glass. The question is already there, a tiny, dangerous seed planted in his mind. And he knows, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that it has already started to grow. The next morning, Lennon walks the halls of Serenity Crest with a renewed sense of caution. He tells himself his job is simple: mop, dust, and disappear. He is a function, not a person. He actively avoids looking into room 3B as he passes, focusing on a scuff mark near the baseboard that requires his full attention. He can feel the silent pull of the room, the unanswered question hanging in the air, and he resists it with all his might. Forget the pattern on the window. Forget the son's venomous words. Just do the job. But the memory is a stubborn stain. Throughout the day, he observes the routine surrounding Ilara Vance. A nurse's aide delivers her meal tray, speaking to her in the overly loud, simplistic tone people reserve for small children or the very old. "Here we are, sweetie. Time for our lunch." Ilara doesn't respond. The aide efficiently cuts the food into small pieces and leaves. An hour later, she returns and removes the tray, untouched, without a word. No one coaxes her to eat. No one sits with her. She is a task on a checklist. Lennon sees it in the way the staff moves around her, a careful, professional distance. They change her linens, adjust her blanket, and record notes on a chart, their faces impassive. There are no personal photographs on her walls, no stack of well-loved books on her nightstand. The room is as sterile as a hotel, furnished with expensive, impersonal pieces. It's a room for a body, not a person. The profound depth of her isolation gnaws at him. Whatever she was before, whatever life she lived, has been erased. She is only what her son called her, a shell. His resolve to stay uninvolved begins to fray. He thinks of Harper, and the terror of her ever feeling that alone in the world tightens his chest. That afternoon, while hauling a bag of garden clippings to the incinerator, he spots it. A single, defiant dahlia that has bloomed late in the season, its deep crimson petals perfect against the green foliage. On a pure, unthinking impulse, he plucks it. The stem is cool and firm in his hand. He knows it's against the rules. The gardens are for the residents' viewing pleasure only. But the thought of that perfect flower wilting unseen feels like a crime. Later, during his final sweep of the 3rd floor, he hesitates outside room 3B. The hallway is empty. Taking a deep breath, he slips inside, his cart providing a convenient shield. "Just cleaning the trash," he murmurs to the empty space, his voice sounding loud in the silence. Ilara is in her usual chair, her back to him, staring out the window. He quickly empties her wastebasket, his heart thumping. On her nightstand is a glass of water. With trembling fingers, he takes the dahlia, its stem shortened, and places it in the glass. The vibrant red is a slash of life in the muted beige room. It's a small, foolish gesture. Meaningless. He expects no reaction and gets none. He doesn't look at her as he backs out of the room, pulling the door quietly shut. Still, as he walks away, a strange sense of peace settles over him. He did a kind thing. It doesn't matter if it was noticed. When he gets home, Harper is waiting for him with a new drawing. This one is of 2 stick figures holding hands. One is tall, labeled Daddy, and the other is small, labeled Me. They are standing next to a 3rd figure sitting in a chair. "Who's that?" Lennon asks, pointing to the 3rd figure. "That's the quiet lady," Harper says. "I think she's lonely. So I drew us with her, so she has friends." Lennon feels a lump form in his throat. He hugs his daughter tightly, burying his face in her hair. He has to protect this pure, uncomplicated goodness. The world hasn't beaten it out of her yet, and he'll do anything to keep it that way. His small act of defiance with the flower suddenly feels less foolish and more necessary. It's what a man who is a father to a girl like Harper is supposed to do. For the rest of the week, Lennon maintains his new, silent ritual. Each day, he finds a small piece of the outside world, a uniquely shaped leaf, a smooth gray stone from the garden path, a fallen feather from a blue jay, and leaves it on Ilara's nightstand when he cleans her room. He never looks for a reaction. He never says a word. They are anonymous offerings of kindness. He also starts to watch more closely. He notices that while her eyes appear vacant, they track. When a hummingbird hovers outside her window, her gaze follows its frantic movements with an unnerving stillness. When Mr. Dryden walks past her door, her posture seems to stiffen almost imperceptibly. These are fleeting, momentary things. Blink and you'd miss them. But Lennon is looking. He sees them. And with each observation, the question in his mind grows louder. On Friday, he enters her room to collect the trash. His collection of small treasures sits on her nightstand. The stone, the leaf, the feather. The dahlia from Monday is gone, likely discarded by the day staff. As he reaches for the wastebasket, his eyes land on the only other personal item in the room, something that's been there all along but that he's never paid much attention to. It's a small, hand-carved wooden bird sitting next to the glass of water. It's a simple thing, maybe a robin or a sparrow. Its wood darkened with age and smoothed from what must be years of handling. He feels an odd compulsion to touch it. His hands are calloused and rough from work, but his touch is gentle as he picks it up to dust beneath it. The wood is warm, almost alive. It feels solid, heavy for its size. His thumb strokes the smooth curve of the bird's back, and that's when he feels it. A line. It's a tiny, almost imperceptible seam, so perfectly carved that it's nearly invisible, running from the base of the neck to the tail. It's not a crack in the wood. It's a deliberate, masterful join. His fingers, trained from years of assembling tiny, complex security components, instinctively know what they are feeling. This isn't just a carving. He sets the bird down, his hand shaking slightly. He glances over his shoulder at Ilara, who sits unmoving in her chair, a silent sentinel. The room suddenly feels charged, the air thick with secrets. The bird isn't a keepsake, it's a container, and whatever it's hiding, he knows with a chilling certainty, is the reason a son wants his mother erased. The weekend is a special kind of torment. Lennon plays catch with Harper in the park, helps her with a diorama of the solar system, and reads her bedtime stories, all while a part of his mind remains locked in room 3B with a small wooden bird. He pictures it sitting on the nightstand, a silent vessel of secrets. What could possibly be inside? A photograph? A letter? A key? Every possibility feels both mundane and wildly dangerous. His hands itch with the need to know, a feeling he recognizes from his old life, the thrill of solving a complex wiring problem, the satisfaction of a perfectly installed system. His fear, however, is a cold, heavy counterweight. On Saturday night, after Harper is asleep, he sits in the dark and searches for Damien Kincaid online. The results paint a picture of ruthless ambition. Kincaid Real Estate dominates the city's skyline, a portfolio of glittering skyscrapers built on aggressive acquisitions and hostile takeovers. There are articles praising his genius, and others hinting at shadowy legal battles, crushed competitors, and rumors of connections to organized crime. Rumors that are always dismissed by his army of lawyers as the jealous whispers of lesser men. Lennon reads about Kincaid's philanthropic donations to police funds and judicial campaigns, moves that buy influence and silence. This is not a man you cross. This is a man who crushes people like Lennon for sport. By the time he goes to bed, his course is set. He has to walk away. It's too dangerous. He has Harper to think about. He can't lose this job, can't put his daughter at risk over a mystery that has nothing to do with him. But on Monday morning, as he puts on his gray uniform, the resolve feels hollow. He looks at his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. He sees the tired lines around his eyes, the resignation in his posture. Walking away feels like another failure, another instance of the world telling him to know his place. When Harper gives him a hug at the door, her small arms wrapped tight around his waist, he feels a different kind of resolve solidify within him. He has to teach her to stand up for what's right, and that lesson can't be taught with words if his actions spell cowardice. He arrives at Serenity Crest with a plan. It's risky, but simple. During the mid-morning lull, when most residents are in the lounge for an activity, he heads to the 3rd floor. He positions his cart at the far end of the hall and then, accidentally, knocks a large bucket of soapy water onto the floor, creating a minor messy flood that requires immediate attention and blocks the corridor. As staff members are drawn to the commotion, Lennon grabs a fresh mop and heads in the opposite direction, toward room 3B. "I'll start on this end," he calls out, and no one questions him. He slips into Alara's room, his heart pounding. She is in her chair, as always. The air is still. He has maybe 2 minutes. He walks directly to the nightstand, his movements swift and sure. He picks up the wooden bird. It feels heavier now that he knows its secret. His fingers, nimble from years of handling delicate wires and tumblers, trace the hidden seam. He finds a tiny indentation near the tail feather, a release mechanism. He presses it with his thumbnail. With a faint, satisfying click, the top half of the bird separates from the bottom. Inside, nestled in a small cavity lined with faded red velvet, is a tiny cylinder of dark celluloid film, tightly rolled and secured with a single strand of thread. It's microfilm. Lennon stares at it, his breath caught in his throat. This isn't a keepsake. This is espionage. This is something from a spy movie, a relic of an era before digital files and encrypted drives. It's tangible, physical evidence of something. Something worth hiding in the most ingenious, old-fashioned way imaginable. Something worth faking dementia over. He quickly closes the bird, the click of the mechanism sounding like a gunshot in the silent room. He places it back on the nightstand, exactly as he found it. The spill in the hallway has bought him the time he needed. He finishes his perfunctory cleaning and leaves, his mind reeling. Microfilm. The technology is so archaic that it's almost brilliant. No one would ever think to look for it. To access its contents, you'd need a special reader, a machine that likely exists only in libraries or old newspaper archives. He knows, with chilling certainty, that he can no longer pretend this is just a family dispute. But he has to be sure about Ilara. Is she a willing participant, or is this bird something she's been holding on to since before her mind faded? He needs a sign, an unambiguous signal that she is lucid and aware of him. He needs to open a line of communication. His mind flashes to the residence lounge. In the corner, a beautiful dust-covered mahogany chessboard sits on a small table, perpetually unused. An idea, born from 1,000 logic puzzles and security challenges, takes shape. Later that afternoon, during his final rounds, he makes a small detour. He palms a single piece from the board, a white pawn. It feels smooth and cool in his hand. It represents the opening move, a declaration of intent. It is a question. He walks to room 3B for the last time that day. He empties the trash, straightens the blanket on the bed, his movements calm and deliberate. Ilara hasn't moved. He approaches the nightstand, his back to her. He adjusts the glass of water, moves the wooden bird a fraction of an inch. Then, with a hand that is surprisingly steady, he places the small, white pawn on the far corner of the table, near the base of the lamp. It's a subtle addition, easily overlooked by a casual observer, but to a chess player, it's an unmistakable signal. Pawn to King's Rook 4, an unconventional but deliberate opening. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't wait for a sign. He has made his move. He turns and walks out of the room, pulling the door closed behind him. The ball is in her court now. He can only wait and see if she will play. Tuesday is the longest day of Lennon's life. Every minute of his shift stretches into an eternity of anticipation. He performs his duties on autopilot, his mind caught in a loop of possibilities. The white pawn could be gone, dismissed by a day shift cleaner as a piece of misplaced trash. Ilara could have ignored it, a meaningless object in her fog-shrouded world. Or, just maybe, she saw it, understood it, and answered. The hope is a tight, anxious knot in his stomach. He saves the third floor for last, a deliberate act of delaying the moment of truth. When he can put it off no longer, he pushes his cart out of the service elevator, the familiar squeak of its wheels sounding like a drumbeat marking his approach. He mops his way down the hall, his movements slow and methodical, his eyes fixed on the closed door of room 3B. When he finally reaches it, he takes a deep, steadying breath and pushes it open. He forces himself to follow his routine, to create a reason for being there. He crosses the room to empty the small wastebasket first, his back to the nightstand. He straightens a picture on the wall that is already perfectly straight. His heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. Finally, he turns. He looks at the nightstand by her bed. The white pawn is gone. A wave of disappointment, so sharp it feels like grief, washes over him. It was a stupid idea, a desperate fantasy. She's a sick old woman, and he's a janitor playing make-believe spy games. He should have known better. He feels a fool's blush creep up his neck. As he turns to leave, his eyes scan the room one last time. And then he sees it. It's not on the nightstand. On the small, polished table beside Ilara's armchair, where the afternoon sun streams through the window, stands a single, black chess piece. A rook. Lennon stops dead, the mop handle slipping in his sweaty palm. A black rook. It's a direct response. Not a pawn answering a pawn, but a major piece answering a minor one. It's a move of power, of significance. It's a statement. I see your move, and I raise you. The game is on. He slowly lifts his gaze from the chess piece to the woman in the chair. Her eyes are fixed on the gardens outside, her expression as placid and empty as ever. But for a single, breathtaking second, her eyes shift, moving from the window to meet his. In their depths, for the first time, He doesn't see a void. He sees a flicker of sharp, blazing intelligence. He sees gratitude. He sees a warning. It's a silent, powerful acknowledgement, an entire conversation packed into a fleeting glance. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it's gone. The mask of dementia slips back into place, and she is once again the quiet lady, the senile shell. Lennon feels a jolt of adrenaline, a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. It's real, all of it. He's not imagining things. He has an ally who is trapped, brilliant, and counting on him. The alliance is sealed. He finishes his work in a daze, his mind racing. He now has confirmation, but he also has a roll of useless microfilm. What does she want him to do with it? He can't ask. Their communication is a fragile, one-way street of her clues and his interpretation. The next day, he receives his answer. He enters her room to find a copy of the city newspaper lying on the foot of her neatly made bed. This is unusual. Ilara never has a newspaper. He assumes a cleaner left it by mistake. As he reaches to pick it up and toss it in the recycling, he notices it's been folded in a peculiar way, drawing attention to a specific page. It's the arts and culture section. His eyes scan the page. There's a review of a new play and an interview with a local artist. Then he sees it, a small article about a classic film festival happening at the city's historic Avalon Theater. The newspaper is folded to feature a short summary of an old spy thriller from the 1960s. Lennon reads the description. An American journalist in Cold War Berlin discovers a conspiracy hidden on a strip of microfilm and must race to find a way to view the secret documents before the enemy closes in. Microfilm. The word seems to leap off the page. It's a message. His eyes continue down the column, and just below the movie listing is a large quarter-page advertisement. It's for the city's central public library. In bold letters, the ad proclaims, "Unlock the past in our historical archives and research department. Public microfilm readers available." Lennon's breath catches. It's a perfect, elegant instruction. She has given him the what, the why, and now the where. The path is laid out before him, each step a breadcrumb left by his silent, imprisoned partner. The risk is immense. The library is a public place. What if someone is watching her? What if someone is watching him? Damien Kincaid is a man who leaves nothing to chance. It's entirely possible he has people monitoring his mother, even in her current state. He folds the newspaper and tucks it into his cart, beneath a pile of dirty rags. He finishes his work, his mind a whirlwind of new plans and new fears. The game has changed. He's no longer just interpreting clues. He's been given a direct order, an assignment. That evening, as he clocks out, he feels the weight of the decision. His normal route takes him to the bus stop, home to Harper, to safety. But the newspaper in his bag feels like a ticking clock. He stands on the curb, the rumble of the evening traffic washing over him. The bus home pulls up, its doors hissing open, an invitation back to his ordinary life. For a long moment, he watches it, his heart aching with the desire to get on. Then, with a resolve that feels both foreign and deeply right, he lets the bus pull away. He turns and starts walking in the opposite direction, toward the tall granite columns of the city's central library. He is no longer just Lennon Clark, the janitor. He is now part of something much bigger, a conspiracy whispered through chess pieces and newspaper clippings. And he knows, with a terrifying certainty, that there is no turning back now. The city library is a fortress of granite and silence. Under normal circumstances, Lennon finds places like this calming, a quiet refuge from a loud world. But tonight, it feels like a trap. Every rustle of a turning page, every cough from a fellow patron sounds like a threat. He walks through the grand vaulted entrance hall feeling like a trespasser, acutely aware of his worn work boots and the faint clean scent of industrial disinfectant that clings to his clothes. He keeps his head down, his hand instinctively resting on the pocket where the tiny wooden bird is nestled, a secret weighing him down. He follows the signs to the Historical Archives and Research Department, a hushed, dimly lit wing in the library's basement. The air here smells of old paper and dust. A handful of university students and elderly researchers are scattered among the long wooden tables, hunched over books and glowing screens. A stern-looking librarian with sharp glasses and a sharper expression presides over the room from a large, imposing desk. Lennon feels her eyes on him as he approaches, a flicker of disapproval in her gaze. "Can I help you?" she asks, her voice a crisp whisper. I need to use a microfilm reader," Lennon stammers, feeling his face flush. Her eyes narrow slightly, sizing him up. "The readers are for archival research. What collection are you accessing?" Lennon's mind goes blank. He hadn't prepared for this. The city planning records," he blurts out, the first thing that comes to mind. "From the 60s. For a personal project." The lie feels flimsy, but the librarian seems to accept it with a weary sigh. She points a long, bony finger toward a row of hulking beige machines in the corner. "The instructions are posted. Be sure to handle the film with care," Lennon nods, his throat dry. He selects a reader at the end of the row, a station partially obscured by a tall shelf of books, offering a sliver of privacy. His hands are trembling as he takes the wooden bird from his pocket. He glances around. No one is watching. With deft movements, he opens the bird, retrieves the tiny roll of film, and carefully closes the bird again. The machine is archaic, a tangle of spools and lenses. Following the faded instructions, he carefully threads the delicate film onto the spool. The process is nerve-wracking. The film feels brittle, as if it could turn to dust in his clumsy fingers. Finally, it's loaded. He turns on the lamp, and a bright square of light illuminates the screen. He takes a deep breath and begins to turn the crank. The first images swim into focus, magnified and glowing with a pale green light. It's not city plans. It's a ledger. The handwriting is small and neat, the columns meticulously organized. Lennon leans closer, his eyes scanning the page. He sees dates stretching back 5 years. He sees names of shell corporations he's never heard of: Apex Holdings, Summit Global, Pinnacle Ventures. And next to them, in the transaction columns, are numbers that make his breath catch. Transfers of hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars, flowing between accounts with dizzying speed. It's a detailed, undeniable record of a massive money laundering operation. His heart pounds. This is it. This is the secret. Damien Kincaid isn't just a ruthless businessman. He's a high-level criminal. He keeps turning the crank, scrolling through page after page of illicit transactions. Then the content shifts. He begins to see handwritten notes scribbled in the margins, notes in a different, more elegant hand, Ilara's. They are coded, cryptic. SRF funding for Pier 7 construction. KRE footing costs for city center crane, see entry 4.2. She was tracking her son, connecting his criminal enterprise to his legitimate one. Then he finds the map. It's a hand-drawn schematic of a building's foundation, instantly recognizable as the Kincaid Tower, the glittering centerpiece of Damien's empire. The drawing is detailed, showing support pillars and rebar configurations, and on it are 2 distinct red X's, marking specific coordinates deep within the concrete slab. Next to one of the marks is a small, chilling notation, SR-final payment. Lennon's blood runs cold. SRA person's initials? Final payment. It's not just money being buried. It's a record of something far more sinister. Evidence, or maybe someone. A rival who was silenced and entombed in the foundation of his own monument to greed. The final frames on the microfilm contain a different kind of document. It's a typed letter, a sworn affidavit signed by Ilara Vance and dated 2 years ago, just before she was admitted to Serenity Crest. Lennon reads her words, and a portrait of a brilliant, terrified woman emerges. She details how she, a board member of her late husband's original company, discovered Damien's criminal activities. She writes about his partnership with a ruthless crime syndicate. She explains that she has been secretly compiling this evidence, but that Damien has become suspicious of her questions. She fears for her life. "Should I be declared mentally incompetent?" she writes, her words a ghostly premonition. "Or should my death be deemed anything but natural? This evidence must be delivered directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The local authorities cannot be trusted." She knew. She saw all of this coming and prepared for war. Faking dementia wasn't a retreat. It was a strategic, defensive maneuver, a way to stay alive while protecting her arsenal. Lennon sits back, stunned and shivering, the glow of the screen illuminating his pale face. He feels the weight of the information crashing down on him. This is so much bigger than he ever imagined. He has to get proof. He pulls out his phone, his fingers fumbling as he turns off the flash. He quickly, carefully begins to take pictures of the screen, capturing the ledger, the map, and every word of Alara's affidavit. He's so focused on his task, on the quiet clicks of his phone's camera, that he doesn't hear the soft footsteps approaching. "Can I help you with something?" The voice, a dry whisper right behind him, makes him jump. He spins around in his chair, his heart leaping into his throat. It's the librarian. She's standing over him, her arms crossed, her sharp eyes fixed on his phone. Her expression is unreadable, a blank mask of professional inquiry. For a heart-stopping second, Lennon is certain he's been caught. He imagines alarms, security guards, a phone call to the very people Alara warned him about. He is trapped. Lennon's blood turns to ice. He shoves his phone into his pocket, his movements clumsy and panicked. "No, I was just finishing up," he stammers, his mind racing for an excuse, a plausible lie. The librarian adjusts her glasses, her gaze dropping from his face to the microfilm reader, then to his phone, which is still visibly poking out of his pocket. "Sir," she says, her voice low and laced with academic disapproval, "this is an archival department. The flash from phone cameras can damage delicate historical documents over time. If you wish to make copies, you are required to use the designated scanner for a fee of 50 cents per page." Relief, so potent and sudden it almost makes him dizzy, floods through Lennon's body. She wasn't suspicious of the content. She was enforcing the rules. He was just another patron breaking protocol. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice sounding weak. "I didn't know. It won't happen again." "See that it doesn't," she sniffs, before turning with a rustle of her cardigan and gliding back to her desk. Lennon doesn't wait. He quickly unthreads the microfilm, his fingers still shaking, and places it back inside its wooden vessel. He shoves the bird deep into his pocket, gathers his things, and walks out of the archives without a backward glance. He doesn't stop walking until he's out of the library and back in the cool night air, the city lights seeming unnaturally bright. His phone feels like a bomb in his pocket. He has it. The proof, the ledger, the map, the chilling affidavit from a woman preparing for her own murder. He is now the sole keeper of a secret that could dismantle a criminal empire and get him killed in the process. The walk home is a haze of paranoia. Every pair of headlights in a rearview mirror is a car that's following him. Every pedestrian who glances his way is a potential threat. He takes 3 different buses, getting off at random stops, walking through unfamiliar neighborhoods just to be sure no one is on his tail. When he finally unlocks the door to his apartment, Harper is asleep on the sofa, a book of fairy tales open on her chest. The sight of her, so peaceful and innocent, is a painful gut punch. What is he doing? He's bringing this danger, this darkness, into her world. He gently lifts her into his arms and carries her to bed, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. For a long moment, he just stands there, watching the steady rise and fall of her small shoulders, and is consumed by a wave of terrifying doubt. The next day at Serenity Crest, the change is immediate and palpable. The usual daytime security guard, a friendly older man named Gus, is gone. In his place is a younger, fitter man with a military-style haircut and cold, watchful eyes that seem to miss nothing. When Lennon swipes his staff card, the new guard studies his ID for a beat too long before nodding him through. Mr. Dryden, the director, bustles past him in the lobby, his gaze fixed firmly on the floor, offering only a clipped, tense, morning Clark. Without breaking stride. The air on the third floor feels different too. Charged. Staff members talk in hushed tones, occasionally glancing toward room 3B. Lennon knows instinctively that his actions have triggered a reaction. Damien Kincaid, a man built on control, must have sensed a change in the environment around his mother. A chess piece out of place, a kindness reported by a sycophantic nurse. It wouldn't take much to arouse his suspicion. When Lennon enters Alara's room, he feels the chill most acutely. Everything is in its place, clean and sterile, but it feels like a cage that has been rattled. As he moves to empty the trash, he sees her warning. On the floor, in the very center of the plush carpet, sits the smooth gray stone he'd left for her days ago. It's a deliberate placement, an object unnervingly out of place. It's a silent scream. The enemy is here. The walls are closing in. He pockets the stone and finishes his work quickly, the feeling of being watched now a certainty. The new guard makes a slow patrol down the hall, his eyes lingering on Lennon as he exits Alara's room. The summons comes at 4:45, 15 minutes before the end of his shift. Mr. Dryden wants to see him in his office. Lennon's stomach plummets. He knows what this is. He walks into the richly appointed office to find Mr. Dryden sitting behind his large mahogany desk, looking profoundly uncomfortable. But he's not the one Lennon's attention is drawn to. Standing by the window, staring out at the gardens with his hands clasped behind his back, is Damien Kincaid. Damien turns, and his eyes are like chips of ice. There is no pretense, no accusation, just a cold, confident power. "Mr. Clark," he says, his voice soft, almost pleasant. "We seem to have a security issue." "Sir?" Lennon says, his own voice steady despite the frantic beating of his heart. "We've had reports," Mr. Dryden cuts in, reading from a file on his desk without looking up. "Reports of you loitering, spending unnecessary time in residence rooms. It's a violation of our privacy protocols. A serious one. The accusation is so flimsy, so transparently false, that it's almost laughable. But the men in this room aren't interested in the truth. Specifically," Damien says, taking a step forward, "my mother's room. I pay this facility a great deal of money to ensure her privacy and safety, and I find out that the janitor has been taking a special interest in her. Tell me, Mr. Clark, what is it about my mother that you find so fascinating?" "She seemed lonely," Lennon says simply, deciding that the truth is his only weapon. Damien lets out a short, humorless laugh. "Lonely?" "She's barely conscious. What she is a very wealthy woman. And men like you," he says, his eyes raking over Lennon's worn uniform, "are always sniffing around wealth, looking for an angle, a handout." "That's not true," Lennon says, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "It doesn't matter what's true," Damien says, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper as he steps closer. "It only matters what I say is true. You're a security risk." He turns to the director. "He's fired." Effective immediately, Mr. Dryden clears his throat. "Lennon, I'm sorry. Your position has been terminated. Please collect your personal items from your locker. It's a death sentence delivered with bureaucratic blandness." Damien isn't finished. As Lennon turns to leave, Damien places a hand on his shoulder, his grip surprisingly strong. "A piece of advice," he says, his voice a low threat meant only for Lennon. "People who stick their noses into Kincaid family business often lose more than just their jobs. They lose everything. Are we clear?" Lennon looks him straight in the eye. He doesn't back down. "Perfectly." He pulls his shoulder away and walks out of the office without another word. The new security guard is waiting to escort him to his locker, and then to the front door, as if he were a common criminal. He's handed a small cardboard box containing his thermos, a spare set of work gloves, and a framed picture of Harper. He's walked out into the late afternoon sun, jobless and openly threatened. He looks back at the pristine, imposing facade of Serenity Crest, a fortress where his only ally is now more trapped, more isolated than ever before. He's at rock bottom. The danger is no longer a distant possibility. It's a direct, personal threat against him and the only person in the world he cares about. He has the evidence on his phone, but he has no power, no money, and no allies left. The first day of unemployment is a gray, formless void. Lennon wakes up at his usual time, the muscle memory of 1,000 workdays pulling him from bed before the sun is up. Then he remembers. There is no uniform to put on, no bus to catch, no sterile hallways to mop. There is only the crushing silence of his small apartment and the gnawing fear in the pit of his stomach. He makes Harper pancakes for breakfast, forcing a smile that feels brittle and fake. He can't tell her he's been fired. He tells her he has a few days off, a small lie that tastes like ash in his mouth. She accepts it with the easy trust of a child, chattering excitedly about her school project while he watches her, his heart a leaden weight in his chest. Damien Kincaid's threat echoes in his mind. People lose everything. He looks at his daughter, and he knows what everything means. For 2 days, he exists in a state of suspended panic. He scrolls through online job boards, the listings a bleak landscape of minimum wage positions that wouldn't even cover their rent. He gets a second past due notice in the mail, this one printed on angry red paper. The walls of the apartment feel like they are closing in. The evidence on his phone feels less like a weapon and more like a suicide note. Who would he even take it to? The police. Ilara's affidavit warned him they couldn't be trusted. The FBI? A disgraced janitor walking into a federal building with a wild story about a billionaire CEO and a conspiracy hidden on microfilm sounds like the opening scene of a bad movie, one that ends with him being escorted out by security, or worse, quietly disappearing. The paranoia is the worst part. He keeps the blinds drawn, convinced a black car is parked across the street. He flinches every time the phone rings. He's trapped, not by walls, but by his own powerlessness. On the 3rd day, he hits his breaking point. He's sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the photos on his phone. The ledger, the map. Ilara's brave, terrified words. He can't do it. He can't risk Harper's safety. It's over. He has to protect his daughter, and that means forgetting Ilara Vance and everything he's discovered. His thumb hovers over the delete button, a single press away from erasing it all, from retreating back into the safety of anonymity. That's when the mail carrier slides the day's delivery through the slot in their front door. It's the usual assortment of junk mail and bills, but among them is a small, plain manila envelope. It's thicker than a normal letter. There is no return address. His name and address are typed, the font clean and impersonal. His heart begins to pound a slow, heavy rhythm. He tears it open. Inside, there is no letter, no note, just a single object, wrapped in a piece of tissue paper. He unwraps it. It's a key, an old-fashioned tarnished brass key, the kind used for a safe deposit box. Taped to its head is a tiny, folded slip of paper. He carefully peels it off and unfolds it. It's not a message. It's a drawing. A symbol, hand-drawn in black ink. A star inside a circle, bisected by sharp, precise lines. It's the pattern. The exact same complex geometric pattern he saw Ilara trace on the fogged-up window of her room on that very first day. Lennon stares at the key and the symbol, a jolt of pure adrenaline coursing through him. This is from her. It has to be. He was her only link to the outside, and when that link was severed, she must have activated a contingency plan. She had a confederate, an agent on the outside, a lawyer perhaps, or a trusted friend from her old life. Someone instructed to execute this final step the moment they learned he had been fired. His termination was the signal. This changes everything. It's not just about digital photos on a phone anymore. This key, this physical object, opens a door to something tangible. The final piece of the puzzle. The hard evidence. Ilara, even from within her gilded cage, was still fighting. She was still leading him. She hadn't given up on him. The doubt, the suffocating fear that had plagued him for days, doesn't vanish, but it's burned back by a new, fierce sense of purpose. He was about to delete the photos, to surrender. This key is a rebuke to his cowardice. It's a call to arms. He looks at the number stamped onto the key, 734, and below it, the name of a bank, First Sovereign Trust, a small, exclusive institution in the heart of the financial district. He knows what he has to do. The risk is no longer a reason to hide. It's a reason to act, and to act now, before Damien realizes there are other pieces in play. That evening he calls Mrs. Gable, the kind, elderly woman who lives next door and occasionally babysits. He tells her he has a job interview, another lie that feels more like a necessary strategy than a sin. After tucking Harper into bed and promising to be back before she wakes up, he leaves the apartment. The city looks different tonight. The towering skyscrapers, once symbols of a world he wasn't part of, now look like concrete tombs hiding dark secrets. He gets on a downtown bus, the brass key heavy and cool in his pocket. It feels like a weapon. He is no longer Lennon Clark, the fired janitor. He is Ilara Vance's chosen agent, the executor of her last stand. He is no longer running from the danger. He is heading directly into the heart of it. First Sovereign Trust is not a bank for people like Lennon. Its facade is a monument of polished marble and brass, the kind of architecture that is designed to quietly announce its own importance. As he pushes through the heavy bronze doors, he enters a lobby that feels more like a cathedral dedicated to money. The ceilings are impossibly high. The floors are a gleaming checkerboard of black and white tile, and the only sound is the hushed murmur of quiet transactions and the soft clicks of expensive shoes. It's 5:15. The bank will be closing soon. Lennon, in his simple jacket and worn jeans, feels every eye on him. He looks like a stray dog that has wandered into a palace. He ignores the stairs and walks directly to a desk marked Vault Services. The man behind the desk is older, with silver hair and a perfectly tailored suit. He looks at Lennon over a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles, his expression one of polite, professional skepticism. "May I help you?" the man asks, his tone implying that he probably cannot. "I need to access a safe deposit box," Lennon says, his voice coming out steadier than he expected. He places the tarnished brass key on the polished surface of the desk. The man, whose nameplate reads Mr. Alistair Finch, picks up the key as if it were a curious artifact. He examines the number. "Box 734, and you are?" "Lennon Clark." Finch types the name and number into his computer, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Lennon holds his breath. This is the moment it all falls apart. The box will be in Ilara's name. He'll have no authority, and security will be called. But Finch's eyebrows raise a fraction of an inch. "Ah, yes. Mr. Clark, I see your name was added to this account 3 days ago. Do you have a form of identification?" 3 days ago. The day he was fired. Ilara's agent had moved the second his role in the plan was over. Lennon pulls out his worn driver's license and hands it over. Finch scrutinizes it, compares the photo to his face, and finally gives a stiff, satisfied nod. "Very good. If you'll follow me." Lennon is led past a series of gates and into the vault itself. The air grows colder. The door is a massive circle of polished steel, 18 inches thick, covered in complex gears and locking mechanisms. Inside, the walls are lined from floor to ceiling with thousands of gleaming metal boxes. It is a library of secrets. The silence is absolute, broken only by the soft click of Mr. Finch's shoes on the marble floor. They stop in front of a small section of boxes. Finch inserts a master key into one lock, then gestures for Lennon to use his. With a turn of both keys, there is a solid, satisfying thunk. Finch pulls out a long, narrow metal box and hands it to Lennon. "The third viewing room on your right is available," he says, his voice devoid of curiosity. "Please close the door behind you for privacy." Lennon nods, his throat too tight to speak. He walks into the small, wood-paneled room and shuts the door. It clicks closed, sealing him inside with the box. For a moment, he just sits there, staring at the cold metal container on the table. This is it, the culmination of everything. With trembling hands, he lifts the lid. There is no cash, no gold, no jewels. The box is filled with paper. It's a meticulously organized file folder, thick with documents. On top is a hard copy of the ledger he saw on the microfilm, but this one is covered in Ilara's elegant, handwritten annotations, explaining the coded transactions in damning detail. Beneath it are the original full-sized architectural schematics for the Kincaid Tower. The two locations in the foundation are marked not with a simple X, but with surveyor's coordinates, and attached with a paperclip is a geological report detailing soil displacement anomalies at those exact spots. And on top of it all is a thick, cream-colored envelope with his name written on the front in Ilara's script. He tears it open. The letter inside is several pages long. "My dear Mr. Clark," it begins. "If you are reading this, then I have succeeded in placing my trust in the right man. I am sorry for the terrible danger I have brought into your life and the life of your daughter. I saw you long before you saw me. I watched you from my window for weeks as you worked. I saw your quiet diligence, and I saw the kindness you showed to those whom others ignored. When I saw you with your daughter one afternoon, I knew you were a man of integrity, a man who understood what it meant to protect family. You were the only person my son would never suspect, because he is incapable of seeing the strength in a good man." Lennon has to stop and wipe a tear from his eye. He continues reading as she lays out the entire sordid story of Damien's greed and his descent into criminality. She explains that the enclosed documents are the originals, legally admissible, and that there is a second, sealed envelope to be delivered only to the FBI. Then he sees the final item she mentioned. At the bottom of the box is a thick legal document, bound in blue paper. It's a deed of transfer. He reads it, his eyes widening in disbelief. It grants him, Lennon Clark, controlling ownership of the Vance Foundation, a multi-million-dollar charitable trust that his late husband had established, an entity completely separate from the Kincaid corporate empire. Ilara had made him a man of means, of standing. It was an incredible gift, but also a strategic masterstroke, a shield. He was no longer just a janitor. Overwhelmed, he quickly packs everything, the ledger, the maps, the letters, the deed, into the worn backpack he brought with him. He slides the empty metal box back into its slot in the vault and closes the door. He walks out into the main lobby, his mind reeling, his backpack feeling like it weighs 100 pounds. The lobby is emptying out as the bank prepares to close. The exit is 50 feet away. Freedom. That's when he sees them. Two men in expensive, ill-fitting suits are standing at Mr. Finch's desk. They aren't customers. They have the coiled, watchful stillness of predators. As Lennon steps out of the vault area, their conversation with the manager stops. They both turn their heads in perfect unison. One of the men, a thick, muscular brute with a flattened nose, looks directly at Lennon, his gaze dropping for a fraction of a second to the bulging backpack before meeting the eyes of his partner. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. They know. An alarm must have been tripped the moment his name was entered into the system. They were waiting for him. Lennon's heart seizes in his chest. The main doors, his only way out, are just ahead. But the two men are now moving away from the desk, their movements casual but deliberate, spreading out to block his path. For a split second, Lennon freezes. The 50 feet of polished marble between him and the front doors might as well be a mile. The two men spread out, forming a pincer, their movements fluid and practiced. They aren't trying to be subtle anymore. The few remaining customers and bank staff are starting to notice, their quiet conversations faltering. The brute with the flattened nose cracks a grim smile. "Mr. Clark," he says, his voice a low rumble that doesn't carry far. "Let's not make a scene. Mr. Kincaid would like his property back. Just hand over the bag, and you can walk away." Walk away? Lennon thinks of Alara's letter, of Damien's threat. There is no walking away. Not anymore. He clutches the straps of his backpack, the documents inside a heavy, righteous weight. He can't outrun them, and he certainly can't fight them. He has to outthink them. His eyes dart around the lobby, not looking for an escape route, but assessing the environment like a security installer sizing up a job. He sees the cameras, the teller stations. The heavy velvet rope stands corralling a line that is no longer there. He sees a massive, ornate porcelain vase filled with lilies, sitting on a pedestal near the wall, an object of extreme value and extreme fragility, a perfect distraction. Lennon takes a half step back, feigning surrender. "Okay," he says, his voice trembling convincingly. "Okay, no trouble." He starts to shrug the backpack off his shoulder. The men relax for a fraction of a second, their professional guard dropping as they anticipate an easy victory. It's the opening Lennon needs. Instead of handing over the bag, he swings it with all his might. The heavy backpack, filled with papers, catches the closer of the two men in the chest, knocking him off balance with a surprised grunt. In the same motion, Lennon lunges for the nearest brass rope stand. It's heavy, its base weighted with sand or concrete, but his adrenaline-fueled strength is enough. He rips it from its place and swings it in a wide, desperate arc directly into the porcelain vase. The sound is explosive, a deafening crash of shattering ceramic and splashing water that echoes through the cavernous lobby. Lilies and shards of porcelain scatter across the floor. A woman screams. The bank's security guard, startled, fumbles for his radio. The chaos is total. In that single precious moment of confusion, Lennon sprints. He doesn't run for the front doors. They'll be expecting that. His eyes had already found his target, a heavy, unmarked door behind a potted plant, labeled Emergency Exit. He vaults over a plush sofa and yanks the door open. A blaring alarm immediately shrieks to life, adding to the pandemonium. He finds himself in a cramped concrete stairwell. He doesn't go up. He flies down the stairs, taking them 2, 3 at a time, his footsteps echoing wildly. He bursts through another door at the bottom and finds himself in a subterranean service corridor, a maze of pipes and electrical conduits. The air is damp and smells of dust and ozone. He can hear the heavy footsteps of the enforcers pounding down the stairs behind him. They're faster than he is. He can't just run. He ducks behind a large air conditioning unit, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The two men thunder past his hiding spot, their momentum carrying them further down the corridor. Lennon doesn't wait. He doubles back, running in the direction he came from, his worn boots silent on the dusty concrete. He finds another door, this one leading to an underground parking garage. He slips through it just as he hears a shouted curse from down the hall. They've realized their mistake. The parking garage is a sprawling, shadowy space filled with expensive cars. He weaves between them, his backpack clutched tight. He sees the ramp leading up to the street, but he knows they'll be covering it. He looks for another way out and spots a ventilation grate near the ceiling. It slats wide enough to see through. He climbs onto the hood of a Rolls-Royce, peering through the grate. He can see the sidewalk, the evening rush hour in full swing. He's right below the street. He hears them entering the garage, their voices sharp and angry. He has to move. He drops back down and runs to the far side of the garage, where a sign points to the subway concourse. An underground connection, his ticket out. He pushes through the doors and is immediately swallowed by the river of commuters. The noise is a welcome shield, the sheer number of people a form of camouflage. He buys a ticket and rushes toward the platforms, daring a glance over his shoulder. He sees him, the brute, his head swiveling, scanning the crowd, his eyes cold and furious. Lennon ducks behind a pillar just as a train screeches into the station, its doors hissing open. He waits until the last possible second. until the warning chime for the closing doors begins to sound, and then he dives into the crowded car, squeezing himself between a man in a business suit and a woman with a stroller. As the train pulls away from the station, he looks back through the window. For a heart-stopping moment, he makes eye contact with the second enforcer, who is standing on the platform, having just missed the train. The man glares at him, a look of pure hatred in his eyes, and pulls out his phone. Lennon slumps against the wall of the train car, his body trembling, his shirt soaked with sweat. He got away, but they know he has the evidence, and they know he's on the run. He's not safe, not yet. He knows there's only one place in the entire city where he might be, the one place Ilara told him to go. He stays on the train for 5 stops, then switches lines twice, the route memorized from his frantic online searches the night before. 40 minutes later, he emerges from a station into the imposing shadow of Federal Plaza. He walks the final 2 blocks, his legs feeling weak and unsteady. He finally stands before it, the city's FBI field office, a modern fortress of glass and steel. He pulls open the heavy glass door and steps inside. The lobby is sterile, quiet, and buzzing with an invisible energy of authority. He did it. He made it. He clutches his backpack, the evidence a tangible weight against his back. He looks back through the doors, across the street, and he sees him. The first man, the brute, is standing on the far sidewalk, partially hidden by a bus stop. He's not trying to get in, he's just watching. He lifts his phone to his ear, his eyes locked on Lennon, a clear and chilling message passing between them. "We see you. This isn't over." Lennon turns away from the window, his fear replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He walks to the main reception desk, where a uniformed agent sits behind a thick pane of bulletproof glass. The agent looks up, his expression neutral. "Can I help you?" Lennon places his hands on the counter, leaning forward slightly so the agent can hear his ragged breath. "Yes," he says,